Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about the retaining wall. There's been many meetings, discussions, research into having the retaining wall, being able to not have a retaining wall, why we have a retaining wall. So all that discussion can be looked at or listened to in other videos. Here we're just going to go through how we got to the retaining wall that we have currently. Just to understand the site, there is a hill on the back side of this, a slope, so a hill here. And where the building is positioned back on there and having to have parking and driveways and apparatus exit, the site had to be pushed back. So no matter what, we cut into that hill. So how are we going to address that cut back into the hill? The Fire Station Building Committee looked at many options and tried very hard to not have a retaining wall or to reduce the height of the retaining wall. They evaluated many options, and really the decision was made based on a balance of aesthetics but also fiscal responsibility. They could have done a very nice design which could have cost an exuberant amount of money, or a very unattractive design which would have cost less money. They kind of balanced something in the middle. And that was based off feedback from other committees, the citizens, the firefighters, the architects. So in the first slide here we have a graded slope option. So this would be by just taking this back wall and making it just a graded hill all the way around, not having any retaining wall. That unfortunately logistically was not an option. And the reason for that is to do a full slope, the slope would have to go outside our lot lines into the adjacent properties. That would have required us purchasing the abutting land to do that. Wasn't fiscally responsible to do that. So a full slope was kind of off the table pretty early. If we did not do that kind of slope and just did a straight slope down the back, that would still require to have retaining walls on the east and west sides. These walls would actually be bigger and longer because they would have to chase this slope all the way up rather than stop here. They would have to continue the slope because we wouldn't be able to slope it over here. So these walls would be bigger. The other concern with the slope is we would have to design a pretty significant water diversion system, which is common and not very difficult to do. However, on that slope, the water would still potentially run down the hill. Like I said, the cost was kind of prohibitive, but also there was environmental impacts that we really took into. So by doing a slope, that whole hill behind where the proposed station is would have to be clear cut of all trees, vegetation, really all the way up to the property lines behind us. So that would aesthetically not be good. Environmentally, we don't want to get rid of trees. We want to keep natural vegetation. It would increase slope erosion, so we would have to do some technology to reduce the erosion of that slope. But it would also increase the noise and light pollution to the south side of Butters because there would be no barrier. So no trees interrupted. So they would be looking directly at the fire station, which with feedback and common courteous, we didn't want to do. So our next option was the base option. This was included in the price of the building. It included a straight wall all the way around the property in this area. GeoGrid is a design to deal with the product or the dirt behind the wall. It's an expensive thing to add, but it's required. Estimated cost was about $800,000. The overall depth of this, now again, this doesn't push back into the property as much, but the depth is about 2 feet. The highest point would be approximately 30 feet in this corner only, and then taper down this way and taper down this way. This point and this point are almost at grade, so that's how it kind of goes down. Here you can see it's straight, but it's got a little angle to it. So that was the base option. The next option was a battered wall option. A battered wall is a straight wall with a little bit more angle. So as you can see here, it's got a little bit more angle, gives the illusion of the wall not being as high because it's on kind of an angle. It's not, so when you stand at the bottom of it, it's more of an angle view. It does not require geogrid. Estimated base was the base plus 300,000. The depth, you go back a little bit more, 17 feet, and the height is still about 30 feet at the single point, same location, which is down here, or on this version, it's here. Now, the thing to point out with all of these options, that the west side wall and the east side walls, because of the property lines, are always going to be straight walls. There's no other option to make those any other type of wall. So basically this back wall is the ones that have the different options. So the next option we had was a mix of a battered wall and a terraced wall. Terrace wall is those step walls that you see. Very nice, but also expensive. This option did not require the geogrid. The cost was the base plus about $550,000. The overall depth, we go back much further to 40 foot, and the height increases because as we move back into the hill gets higher, the wall gets higher. So this wall would be at its highest point 36, a little over 36 feet, and that would be in this back corner, again in this back corner. As you can see, it batters, step, batters, or terrace. It gets more expensive because there's more material, but the further you go back on the property, the more material you'll have to remove, dirt and rock. That increases price. So then we had another option of doing the terrace wall option, which, if cost wasn't a factor, this is probably what we would have gone with. But basically, it does not require a geogrid, but it was, $600,000 over the base. It cuts back 45 feet, which is pretty far, and the height, again, is 36 feet, and but that 36 feet is not at one point. That would be a longer stretch of 34 feet because of the way that the battered wall is built, or excuse me, the terraced wall. So going back through these options, taking into aesthetics, cost, logistics, moving material, and discussions with the architects and the engineers, the decision was to go with the battered wall option. It gives a mix of an angle so the wall's not as in your face, but also is a reasonable cost over the straight wall design. And again, even though that was chosen for this back wall, these other side walls, which are not as high, would be straight walls. As we moved forward after the choice of the wall design, the committee worked with Design Review Committee and some other boards to decide on the material that would be used, so that what the material that the wall would be built out of, and that'll be available for the public in some of the other meetings.